You've been playing by rules that were designed to keep you powerless. While you've been taught to be honest, transparent, and emotionally available, others have been studying the dark arts of influence, manipulation, and strategic silence. They've been building empires while you've been building character. And where has that gotten you? Overlooked, undervalued, and outmaneuvered by people who understand what you're only beginning to realize. The world doesn't reward the pure of heart. It rewards the strategically minded. Today, we're going to explore 10 dark psychology tactics that will help you rebuild yourself in silence and gain the kind of hidden power that makes others bend to your will without them ever understanding why. This isn't about becoming evil. This is about becoming tactically sophisticated. This is about ensuring you never again fall victim to your own naivety in a world where everyone else is playing chess while you've been playing checkers. The first thing you need to understand is that power is not given, it's taken. And it's taken by those who understand human psychology well enough to exploit it. The Machiavellian mindset isn't about cruelty for the sake of cruelty. It's about understanding that in a world full of hidden agendas, you either learn to navigate the darkness or you become consumed by it. Let's begin your transformation. The first tactic is the art of strategic ambiguity. Most people think clarity is a virtue. They believe that being direct and honest will earn them respect and trust. But here's what they don't understand. Clarity gives others power over you. When people know exactly what you think, what you want, and what you're planning, they can predict you. And predictable people are controllable people. Strategic ambiguity is about becoming unreadable. It's about giving people just enough information to keep them engaged, but never enough to give them leverage over you. When you speak in carefully crafted ambiguities, people project their own desires and fears onto your words. They hear what they want to hear, what they need to hear, or what they're afraid to hear. And in that projection, you gain insight into their psychological landscape. You might notice that the most powerful people in your life, whether in business, politics, or social circles, rarely give direct answers to direct questions. They deflect, they redirect, they answer questions that weren't asked while avoiding the ones that were. This isn't because they don't know the answers. It's because they understand that information is power, and power shared is power lost. Practice this in your daily interactions. When someone asks about your plans, don't give them a detailed roadmap. Give them enough to satisfy their curiosity, but never enough to interfere with your strategy. When they ask about your opinions, learn to give responses that could be interpreted multiple ways. Watch how people reveal themselves as they try to decode your meaning. The second tactic involves mastering the psychology of intermittent reinforcement. This is perhaps one of the most powerful psychological principles you can weaponize in your relationships, both personal and professional. Intermittent reinforcement is why people become addicted to gambling, to toxic relationships, and to chasing approval from those who withhold it. Here's how it works. When you give someone consistent attention, praise, or validation, they become accustomed to it. It loses its power. But when you give them unpredictable bursts of positive reinforcement mixed with periods of withdrawal, you create an addiction. Their brain starts craving your approval because it never knows when the next hit is coming. Most people make the mistake of being consistently available, consistently kind, consistently supportive. They think this builds strong relationships. Instead, it builds complacency. People take consistent behavior for granted, but inconsistent behavior, when strategically applied, creates obsession. Start varying your responses to people. Sometimes be warm and engaging. Other times be distant and preoccupied. Don't do this randomly, do it strategically. Withdraw your attention when people take you for granted. Increase it when they show you the respect you deserve. You'll be amazed at how quickly people start adjusting their behavior to earn your positive responses. The key is to never let them figure out the pattern. The moment someone understands your system, they can game it. Keep them guessing. Keep them working for your approval. This isn't about being cruel. It's about understanding that humans value what they have to work for and dismiss what comes easily. The third tactic is the strategic use of silence as a weapon. In a world obsessed with constant communication, constant sharing, constant noise, the person who masters silence wields tremendous power. Silence makes people uncomfortable. It creates tension. And in that tension, people reveal their true intentions, their insecurities, their strategies. Most people rush to fill silence because they interpret it as disapproval or disinterest. They'll say things they never intended to say, reveal information they meant to keep hidden, make concessions they hadn't planned to make, all because they couldn't tolerate the psychological pressure of your quiet presence. Learn to be comfortable in silence. When someone makes a statement that requires a response, don't rush to give one. Let the silence hang in the air. Watch them squirm. Listen to what they say to fill the void. You'll learn more about their psychology in those moments than you would in hours of normal conversation. Use silence strategically in negotiations, in conflicts, in moments when others expect you to react emotionally. Instead of responding with words, respond with thoughtful quiet. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them worry about what your silence means. In their uncertainty, you gain the upper hand. Silence also prevents you from saying things you might regret, from revealing your strategies prematurely, from giving others ammunition to use against you later. The person who speaks less knows more. The person who reveals less controls more. The fourth tactic involves understanding and exploiting cognitive biases. Every human brain is wired with predictable flaws in thinking. These aren't character defects. They're evolutionary shortcuts that helped our ancestors survive, but can be exploited by those who understand them. One of the most powerful biases to understand is confirmation bias. People desperately want to believe they're right about their existing beliefs and opinions. They'll actively seek information that confirms what they already think while ignoring evidence that contradicts it. You can use this by presenting your ideas in ways that seem to confirm what people already believe, even when you're actually leading them toward completely different conclusions. Another crucial bias is the halo effect. When people like one thing about you, they tend to assume they'll like everything about you. When they dislike one thing, they assume they'll dislike everything. This is why first impressions are so powerful, but it also means you can strategically manage how you reveal different aspects of yourself. If you want someone to accept a controversial idea from you, first establish your credibility in an area they already respect. If they see you as competent in one domain, they'll be more likely to trust your judgment in others. If you want to discredit someone's idea, you don't attack the idea directly. You find flaws in unrelated areas and let the halo effect do the work. The anchoring bias is equally useful. The first piece of information people receive about any situation becomes their reference point for everything that follows. If you can control that first impression, that initial data point, you can influence how they interpret everything that comes after. Study these biases. Learn to recognize them in yourself so you can defend against them. Learn to recognize them in others so you can strategically influence their decision-making processes. This isn't about tricking people into doing things that harm them. It's about understanding the psychological landscape well enough to navigate it effectively. The fifth tactic is the cultivation of strategic relationships. Most people approach relationships emotionally. They connect with people they like, people who make them feel good, people who share their interests and values. This is natural, but it's not strategic. The Machiavellian understands that every relationship is a potential asset, and assets should be acquired based on their utility, not their emotional appeal. You need to start thinking about your social network as a portfolio. Just as a financial portfolio needs diversification across different types of investments, your social portfolio needs diversification across different types of people. You need relationships with people who have information you lack, access you don't have, skills you haven't developed, connections you can't reach. This doesn't mean being fake or manipulative in the crude sense. It means being intentional about who you invest your time and energy with. It means maintaining relationships with people who might be useful to you in the future, even if you don't particularly enjoy their company. It means being valuable to people who might be valuable to you. Start mapping out your social environment. Who has power? Who has information? Who has access? Who influences? The people who have power, information, and access. These are the relationships you need to cultivate, not through obvious flattery or manipulation, but through genuine value exchange. Make yourself useful to these people. Solve problems for them. Connect them with resources they need. Provide them with information that helps them achieve their goals. Build a reputation as someone who gets things done, someone who can be trusted with sensitive information, someone who adds value to any situation. Over time, these strategic relationships become a network of influence that amplifies your own power exponentially. When you need something done, you know exactly who to call. When you need information, you have sources. When you need access, you have connections. This is how real power is built, relationship by relationship, favor by favor, value exchange by value exchange. The sixth tactic involves mastering the art of emotional manipulation through strategic vulnerability. This might sound contradictory to everything we've discussed about maintaining distance and control, but hear me out. Strategic vulnerability is about revealing carefully chosen weaknesses to create the illusion of intimacy and trust while actually maintaining complete control over the narrative. People are naturally drawn to those who seem slightly vulnerable, slightly flawed, slightly human. Perfect people are intimidating and hard to relate to, but people who reveal small, manageable vulnerabilities seem approachable, trustworthy, authentic. The key word here is strategic. You're not actually being vulnerable. You're performing vulnerability in a way that serves your interests. Choose minor flaws or past struggles that make you seem relatable without actually giving anyone leverage over you. Maybe you admit to being nervous about public speaking, or you share a story about a minor failure from years ago that taught you an important lesson. These revelations make people feel like they're seeing the real you, like you trust them with your secrets. But here's the manipulation. While they're feeling special about your apparent trust in them, they're also becoming more trusting of you. They're lowering their guard. They're starting to share their real vulnerabilities, their actual secrets, their genuine fears and desires. And that information becomes power you can use later. The person who controls the level of intimacy in a relationship controls the relationship. By strategically managing what you reveal, and when you reveal it, you can create the illusion that others are getting closer to you while you're actually learning everything you need to know about them. This tactic is particularly effective in professional environments where personal connections can make or break careers. The colleague who seems to trust you with their insecurities will often trust you with information about company politics, upcoming changes, other people's weaknesses. Use your strategic vulnerability to unlock their strategic information. The seventh tactic is the weaponization of social proof and authority. Humans are herd animals. We look to others for cues about how to think, feel, and behave. We defer to authority figures even when that authority is artificially constructed. Understanding these tendencies allows you to manipulate how others perceive you and your ideas. Social proof works because people assume that if others are doing something, it must be the right thing to do. If others believe something, it must be true. If others respect someone, that person must be worthy of respect. You can manufacture social proof by carefully managing how others talk about you, by associating yourself with respected people and institutions, by creating the impression that you're in high demand. Start documenting and publicizing your wins, even small ones. When you solve a problem, make sure the right people know about it. When you receive praise, find ways to let others hear about it without seeming like you're bragging. When important people seek your advice, make sure that fact becomes known in your social and professional circles. Authority can be established through expertise, but it can also be established through confidence, consistency, and strategic positioning. People often defer to those who speak with certainty, who seem to have inside information, who appear to be connected to power structures. You don't need to actually be an expert to be perceived as one. You just need to understand the psychological markers that people associate with expertise. Study the people in your environment who are treated as authorities. How do they speak? How do they carry themselves? What signals do they send that make others defer to them? You can learn to replicate these signals without necessarily having the same credentials or experience. The eighth tactic involves the strategic use of reciprocity and obligation. This is one of the most powerful psychological principles you can master. When someone does something for you, you feel obligated to return the favor. This feeling is so strong that it can be triggered even by small, unsolicited favors. And once triggered, it can be leveraged to gain compliance with much larger requests. The key is to do favors for people before you need anything from them. help them solve problems, connect them with opportunities, provide them with valuable information. Do this without being asked and without immediately requesting anything in return. Let the sense of obligation build over time. When you eventually do need something from them, they'll feel psychologically compelled to help you. Not because they necessarily want to, but because they need to balance the psychological ledger. They need to feel like they've repaid their debt to you. This works even better when your initial favors seem spontaneous and generous rather than calculated. People need to believe that you helped them out of genuine kindness rather than strategic thinking. So your Machiavellian calculations must be hidden behind a mask of authentic generosity. You can also use reciprocity in reverse. Instead of doing favors for people, ask them to do small favors for you. This creates what psychologists call the Benjamin Franklin effect. When people do favors for you, they unconsciously justify their actions by deciding they must like you. After all, why else would they help you? This technique can turn neutral parties into allies and even turn mild enemies into friends. The ninth tactic is the mastery of information control. In any social or professional environment, information is power. Who knows what when they know it, and how they learned it determines the hierarchy of influence. Most people are careless with information. They share what they know freely, they gossip without thinking strategically, they reveal their sources and methods without considering the consequences. You need to become an information broker. Collect data about the people in your environment. Learn their goals, their fears, their relationships, their secrets. But don't collect this information through obvious spying or interrogation. Collect it through careful listening, strategic questioning, and patient observation. People love to talk about themselves and their problems. If you become a good listener, if you ask the right questions, if you create a safe space for people to vent their frustrations, they'll tell you everything you need to know. They'll reveal their strategies, their weaknesses, their plans, their relationships with others. But while you're collecting information freely and systematically, you need to be extremely careful about what information you share in return. This is where most people make critical errors that undermine their position for years to come. Every piece of data you reveal is a piece of power you're giving away, and once that information is out there, you can never fully control how it will be used against you. The asymmetry of information sharing is one of the most fundamental principles of strategic thinking, yet it's something that most people completely ignore in their daily interactions. Before you tell anyone anything of substance, especially anything personal or potentially sensitive, ask yourself a series of crucial questions. How could this information be used against me if this person's loyalties change? How might this knowledge be weaponized if we find ourselves in conflict later? What advantage does the other person gain by knowing what I'm about to tell them? And how does that shift the balance of power between us? Will this information make me more vulnerable or less valuable in their eyes? These aren't paranoid questions. They're the questions that strategic thinkers ask automatically, because they understand that information flows in one direction and can never truly be taken back. Consider how this plays out in workplace dynamics. When you tell a colleague about your job search, your financial pressures, your conflicts with other team members, or your personal struggles, you're handing them ammunition that can be used against you at any time. When you reveal your insecurities, your fears, your relationship problems, or your family issues, you're giving others psychological leverage over you. The person who seems sympathetic today might be competing with you for a promotion tomorrow. The friend who listens to your problems today might be looking for ways to advance their own position at your expense next week. This doesn't mean you should never share anything with anyone. It means you should. Share strategically, with clear awareness of what you're giving up and what you're getting in return. Sometimes sharing certain information serves your strategic interests. Sometimes vulnerability creates the kind of connection that advances your goals. But these should be conscious choices, not automatic responses or emotional impulses. Create a reputation as someone who can be trusted with sensitive information, someone who never gossips, never betrays confidences, and never uses personal information as social currency. When people believe you can keep secrets, they'll share their secrets with you freely and regularly. And secrets are among the most valuable forms of information you can possess. They reveal true motivations that people hide behind their public personas. They expose hidden relationships that explain otherwise mysterious alliances and conflicts. They unveil future plans that allow you to position yourself advantageously before others even know what's coming. Building this reputation requires consistent discipline over time. It means never participating in gossip, even when it would be entertaining or socially bonding. It means keeping confidences even when breaking them would give you a temporary advantage. It means being the person who changes the subject when others start sharing information that wasn't meant for you. This restraint might seem like it puts you at a social disadvantage in the short term, but it creates enormous strategic advantages over time. People will begin to seek you out specifically because they know you can be trusted. They'll share information with you that they share with no one else. They'll confide in you precisely because they know their secrets are safe. Use information strategically rather than impulsively. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do with a secret is absolutely nothing at all. Just knowing it gives you psychological leverage and helps you understand the real dynamics at play in any situation. When you know who's really making decisions, who's in conflict with whom, who's planning to leave, who's struggling financially, who's having relationship problems, you can navigate social and professional situations with a level of sophistication that seems almost supernatural to others. You'll understand why certain people react the way they do, why certain alliances exist, why certain decisions get made. Sometimes you can use information preventively to stop problems before they develop. If you know that two team members have a hidden conflict, you can structure projects to minimize their interaction. If you know that someone is planning to leave, you can position yourself to take on their responsibilities. If you know that budget cuts are coming, you can make yourself indispensable before the decisions are made. If you know that certain people have influence that's not reflected in the organizational chart, you can build relationships with them before you need their support. Sometimes you can use information to position yourself advantageously before others realize what's happening. If you know about upcoming changes, new opportunities, emerging conflicts, or shifting priorities, you can prepare your response while others are still operating based on outdated assumptions. This kind of advance knowledge allows you to appear remarkably prescient and strategic, when really you're just better informed than everyone else. The 10th and final tactic is the cultivation of multiple identities and strategic authenticity. This is perhaps the most advanced and sophisticated psychological tactic we'll discuss, and it's the one that separates true strategic masters from people who are merely applying techniques they've learned. Most people have one identity that they present consistently across all situations, all relationships, and all environments. They believe this makes them authentic, genuine, trustworthy, and morally consistent. They think that being the same person in every context is a sign of integrity and strength, but this approach severely limits their effectiveness in different environments and with different types of people, and it often prevents them from achieving their most important goals. The sophisticated strategist understands that different situations require different versions of yourself, and that this isn't about being fake or manipulative, it's about being strategically complete. The identity that works brilliantly in professional settings might be completely ineffective in social settings. The personality that appeals to superiors and authority figures might fail completely with subordinates and peers. The approach that works perfectly with analytical, data-driven people might be disastrous with emotional, relationship-focused people. The communication style that succeeds in competitive environments might undermine you completely in collaborative environments. This doesn't mean being fake, dishonest, or manipulative. It means understanding that you contain multiple authentic selves, and strategic thinking involves knowing which self to present in which situation for maximum effectiveness. You genuinely do have a self that's analytical and data-driven, focused on facts and logic and systematic thinking. You also have a self that's warm and emotionally connected, focused on relationships and feelings and human dynamics. You have a self that's aggressive and competitive, driven to win and dominate and achieve. You also have a self that's collaborative and supportive, focused on helping others succeed and building team cohesion. All of these are genuinely you. All of these are authentic expressions of your personality. The question is which one serves your interests and achieves your goals in any given moment with any particular person. Start paying close attention to how different people respond to different aspects of your personality. Notice which version of yourself gets the best results with different types of people. Some people respond positively to confidence and assertiveness, while others are intimidated or put off by those same qualities. Some people are impressed by expertise and analytical thinking, while others find it cold or arrogant. Some people want emotional connection and personal sharing, while others prefer professional distance and task focus. Practice shifting between these different modes consciously and deliberately, rather than just defaulting to whatever feels most natural or comfortable. With some people, you'll emphasize your expertise and analytical capabilities, your ability to solve problems and think strategically and make data-driven decisions. With others, you'll emphasize your emotional intelligence and relationship skills, your ability to understand people and build connections and navigate complex social dynamics. With still others, you'll emphasize your creativity and vision, your ability to see possibilities and inspire others and think outside conventional boundaries. Each of these presentations is authentic and genuine, but each serves different strategic purposes and achieves different outcomes. The most sophisticated practitioners of this approach eventually develop what we might call strategic authenticity. They become genuinely comfortable with all aspects of their personality, and they can access whichever aspect serves their purposes most effectively in any given situation. They're not being fake or manipulative, they're being strategically complete. They understand that authenticity doesn't mean being the same in every situation. It means being genuinely yourself while adapting that self to achieve your goals most effectively. This requires deep self-knowledge and remarkable emotional flexibility. You need to understand your own psychological landscape well enough to navigate it consciously and deliberately. You need to be comfortable with complexity and ambiguity in your own identity, rather than insisting on a simple, one-dimensional self-concept. You need to accept that being strategically effective sometimes means being psychologically multifaceted, and that this complexity is actually a strength rather than a weakness or a character flaw. As you practice these tactics and develop these capabilities, remember that the goal is not to become a manipulative monster or a sociopathic power seeker. The goal is to become strategically sophisticated in a world where everyone else is already playing psychological games, whether they admit it or not, whether they're conscious of it or not. The naive person believes that good intentions and honest effort will automatically be recognized and rewarded. The strategic person understands that good intentions and honest effort must be combined with psychological sophistication to be truly effective in achieving meaningful goals. You're not becoming evil by developing these skills. You're becoming effective. You're not abandoning your values or compromising your integrity. You're learning to protect and advance your values in a complex world that doesn't automatically reward good people. You're not becoming manipulative in the sense of harming others for selfish gain. You're becoming influential in the sense of having the power to make positive changes and protect what matters to you. There's a crucial difference between using these tactics to harm others for petty personal gain and using them to prevent others from harming you or to advance causes and goals that genuinely matter. The world is already full of people who understand these principles intuitively and use them every single day, often without even thinking about it consciously. Politicians use them to build coalitions and pass legislation. Business leaders use them to motivate teams and close deals. Social media influencers use them to build audiences and create engagement. Sales professionals use them to understand customer psychology and overcome objections. Marketing executives use them to shape consumer behavior and build brand loyalty. The question isn't whether these tactics will be used in the world around you. The question is whether you'll be the one using them strategically or the one being used by others who understand them better than you do. Every day you remain naive about human psychology and social dynamics is another day you're operating at a fundamental disadvantage in almost every interaction. Every conversation where you fail to recognize the psychological dynamics at play is a conversation where someone else has the upper hand and is potentially outmaneuvering you. Every relationship where you're not thinking strategically is a relationship where you're likely being positioned in ways that serve others' interests more than your own. Start small and build these capabilities gradually. Pick one or two of these tactics and begin practicing them in low-stakes situations where the consequences of mistakes are minimal. Pay close attention to how people respond differently when you change your approach, when you ask different types of questions, when you present different aspects of your personality. Notice how much more valuable information you gather when you ask better questions and listen more strategically. Observe how much more influence and persuasive power you have when you understand what really motivates the people around you and speak to those motivations directly. As you develop these skills and begin to see results, you'll start to see the social world completely differently. You'll begin to recognize the psychological games that others are playing, often unconsciously. You'll spot manipulation attempts before they succeed and respond to them effectively. You'll understand why certain people seem to effortlessly accumulate power and influence, while others struggle and fail despite working just as hard and having equally good intentions. You'll see the hidden dynamics that really drive decisions and outcomes. This knowledge becomes both your shield and your sword. It protects you from being exploited, manipulated, or outmaneuvered by others who would take advantage of your naivety. And it gives you the tools to advance your own interests effectively, to build the influence you need to protect what matters to you and achieve goals that genuinely make a difference. In a world where everyone else is playing chess while you've been playing checkers, you finally have a chance to compete at their level and win games that matter. The choice is entirely yours, and it's a choice you make new every single day. You can continue to operate with the psychological sophistication of a child, hoping that the world will somehow recognize and reward your good intentions despite your strategic incompetence. Or you can develop the strategic mindset of a master, ensuring that your good intentions are backed by the psychological sophistication and social power necessary to make them reality. The world doesn't need more naive idealists who mean well but accomplish little, because they don't understand how power actually works. It needs more strategically sophisticated people who understand how to navigate complex social dynamics while maintaining their core values and integrity. It needs people who can recognize manipulation and respond to it effectively rather than being victimized by it. It needs people who understand that sometimes the most moral thing you can do is ensure that you have enough power and influence to protect what matters to you and make the changes that need to be made. These 10 tactics are your foundation. Master them, and you'll never again be the person who wonders why others seem to get ahead while you get left behind. You'll be the person who understands exactly how the game is played, and more importantly, how to win it.